Welcome back to Venture Lounge. Nothing ventured, nothing changed. Our goal every week is to bring you the realest conversations with the Space Coast's most interesting founders and investors. Whether you've tuned in before or this is your first time, if real raw startup stories are your thing, you can support Venture Lounge and our guests by hitting that subscribe button.
Yeah, man, I think we're doing some pretty special, fun stuff here at the Venture Lounge. I mean, every time we have a guest, one thing they almost always say is, I've never said that before on camera. So we're really creating an environment here where people feel comfortable to share these raw startup stories. So by all means, if you're super excited like we are about what's going on at Venture Lounge, subscribe and enjoy the episode.
Right. And just to be clear, Matt, if they're on Spotify, what do?
I don't know.
They subscribe.
Right.
Right. Well, how about you? What, YouTube? YouTube, right?
Yeah, YouTube as well.
Right. Subscribe.
Subscribe.
So, you know what? I knew I was going to have a couple drinks here, so I actually ate today. I don't eat until I get home at like 6 or 7, but I was at a conference. I'm like, you know what? There's potatoes, there's salmon, I'm doing veggies. I'm like, I am going to get some sustenance in me so that I can have a few beers and not worry.
Love it.
So all good.
Seems like an actual Carol.
This is...
When's the last time you done one of these things? Interview or...
Well, last Wednesday I did right in front of everyone doing my little spiel about our company and stuff. But this is the most relaxed. I've done podcasts where I'm on, because of Zoom and all that, where I'm on, Zoom,
it's
whatever.
Just not the same as
it's
being in person.
No, nope.
The format just feels very newscaster-y.
I mean, I'll even cheat, because I'm on the camera. I'm like, okay, what am I going to say? And I'll put paper, so I can really be smooth about what I'm talking about, Sidus space, and and I'm a piano player, so I can sight read. So I can.
You're a piano player too. Oh yeah, so you got to be talking about this during the podcast. Well, you already are. You already are.
I am. You got that in. Yeah, so that makes me a fairly decent public speaker, because when you're sight reading, with piano, you're always kind of thinking ahead.
Oh, yeah.
It might be serially, or it might be, there's a big discussion whether it's in parallel, or can you really multitask? Is that true, or whatever? But yeah, so you're kind of always thinking ahead. You always take pauses, even when you're playing piano, and a little pause for drama, but I'm really just trying to figure out where I am or what note that was. Is that a sharper? Okay, and then I can go on from there. And that's the same.
See, I admire
concept.
that. I'm the opposite. I don't know if you ever watched the show The Office.
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah. But so Michael Scott, he said to the camera once, he goes, sometimes I just start a sentence and I don't know what I'm going to say, and I just
Just keep going.
until I get through. And that's pretty much me. There's so many times throughout the day I start into something and I'm like, this is going to go somewhere.
I promise. Stay with me.
Matt thrives in the abstract, though. You got to leave it open-ended, and it's like a magician,
That's awesome. That's how it should be. Otherwise, life is boring.
There you go.
And especially if you're up there speaking, and you saw me speak, and I'm more the self-deprecating humor, or just amusing myself. There's times when I'm like,
but
I say something.
You have to, but you should. Like it's you have to speak and to communicate so much. You might as well be comfortable doing it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And whatever makes you I can't. If someone hands me a sheet and says read from this, no, I can't do it.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But we all feed off of energy as well. And
Yes.
for me, if I see somebody smile, or somebody makes a smile where they laugh if I say something, then I'm
Right.
like, oh yeah, I'm on now.
If I have a room full of people not smiling, I just look over their heads. I will not make eye contact, because that will send me to a very dark place.
I just start making fun of people. I go the opposite. I call them out. That's where I'm like, oh no, you and I. Yeah. So, yeah.
Maybe that would help too.
Carol, when did you pick up piano?
Oh gosh, I was 6 years old.
Wow.
And I'll admit it, I am 56, so it has been 50 years.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Wow.
and I played piano. I played the whole time, really. I didn't ever stop. I also play violin, but I stopped for a while, so I'm not really that good at violin. I can fake it a little to look cool in a band or something, but piano, I play. I play for churches. I do,
Nice.
Very
jam
cool.
with friends and things like that. So yeah,
That's awesome.
it's fun.
What made you stick with it? Do you like the process of it? Is it like a stress reliever, or is
Yeah.
it you just enjoy the art? I mean, what's going on?
That's a very
there?
good question. I think my mother made me stick with it before, in the
Right.
beginning, right? It was like, no way was I going to be able to quit, and I had to practice. And I had a natural talent. I'm adopted, and I found out later my family, they've got musical talent, Cuban, and all kinds of stuff like that. So
Cool.
I had enough of a talent, natural talent, that I could sort of cheat my way through things. So teachers would think I practiced when I really didn't, or I would do like
awesome.
10 minutes and my mom like 30 minutes. I'm like, okay, 10 minutes. And then I'd be like off doing something else and I could get by. So I could have been really good, I think, but I didn't spend that much time on it. But she made me. And then I think as I got older, I was involved in churches. I think there was an evolution in my piano playing as well. I was classical, really. So I was like Bach, all that kind of stuff.
wow.
And then moved into more things that interested me. And then even in the last 10 years, I think I got much better as I got older because I started seeing musicians that could just jam and be more natural and not have to have music in front of them.
Nice.
So I'm just now getting to the point where I can sit down. My husband told me once, he's like, you're no fun at parties because you can't play stuff from memory or you can't. I'm like, oh, that's mean. I'm like, okay, watch. So I learned Piano Man and a couple other things, and now I'm getting better where I can just sit down and kind of jam stuff. So it's just like evolution of the piano, and it just became more fun. So my ultimate dream someday is to own my own piano bar where I just get to sit and play piano.
Here's an idea. Maybe if we get a venture lounge in Merritt Island, we can throw a badass piano in there.
Yes, spot.
So guess what? I have an extra grand piano.
Oh, you just happen to have one laying around.
So I have one in my house. We had a second house, and I bought a grand piano for it. We sold that house, did real well, Cocoa Beach, but then I had this grand piano. It's in our office, and I don't play it that often. I will donate a grand piano in Merritt Island. I'm serious. I'm not kidding.
This is... If this wasn't attached, this mic would get dropped right now. Fantastic.
That's just how the podcast works, Carol, as the universe reveals itself to us. It's planned real time. I mean, I love it.
It's awesome.
I love it.
Yeah, it's the right questions were asked.
Right,
See, that's
maybe.
what it is. And I'm not afraid to answer.
I love it. I love it.
Welcome to the Legacy Angel Network Venture Lounge, where nothing ventured is nothing changed. For Matt Helmenthaler, press 1. For member services, press 2. For real raw startup stories, press 3. For all other questions or concerns, please wait on the line in our
Good evening, everyone. I'm Matt Helmenthaler, and you're listening to Venture Lounge, after-hour conversations with founders and investors. These are the stories, insights, and conversations that you aren't going to find on the company website. Because the real lessons you learn in the startup world, the risks you take as an entrepreneur, the highs and the lows, the moments in your journey when no one else believes in you right before you break through. Those are the moments that you just have to hear for yourself. So grab a drink and listen in to the men and women who are changing the world. Welcome to the Venture Lounge.
Welcome back to Venture Lounge, everybody. Nothing ventured, nothing changed. My name is Connor Sherman, Pixel Pusher here at Legacy Angel Network, and I'm joined by our founder and co-host, Matt Helmenthaler. Matt, say what's up.
What's up? How you doing?
Who's with us on the couch, man?
This is Miss Carol Craig. Carol and I do not go back that far. However, we met at a function the other evening. Was that called something? What was it called?
I don't think it was. It was more
wasn't-
like, let me introduce you to Sidus Space.
Yeah,
That's what it was.
So yeah,
Now we called it that.
That's what it was. It was at the yacht club down here, and Larry Jarnes in all of his glory. Leading
out Larry.
leading the charge. Yeah,
He was.
Yeah,
He really was.
Yeah, he did good. So I've always wanted to meet you. I've heard your name so many times, even prior to me starting Legacy Angel Network. I worked for a product development company, Wild Manta Ventures.
Okay.
Tim Reynolds is the founder of that company. He owned a company called Soneticom, and he knew of you. I don't know if he knows you or if you know him, but he knew of you, and I heard about you like way back then. And he's like, yeah, this is lady that's doing it right. And I mean, you've had this reputation in our community for a really damn long time of just treating people right, doing it right. And then when I finally met you, I'm like, I get it. I get it.
Well, I was worried when as you're talking, I'm like, okay, some of the things you're saying, like I've heard of you, and that can be good or bad. And then your reputation, I'm like waiting for the last part. Is it good? Is it bad? I mean, I don't regret anything. So even some of it, I might say it was earned. But no, I'm glad. That's very nice. I've been here a while. So 2004 was when we came over here to Brevard County.
And so you started Carroll Craig Industries.
Or Craig Technologies.
Craig Technologies.
Some people have called it before, Carroll Craig Industries. And big joke is I'm always like, it's all about me, but it's not right. But yeah, Craig Technologies.
Craig Technologies.
Yep.
And then your recent new company is Sidus.
Sidus, yeah. And Sidus isn't that new. It actually is a spin-off from Craig Technologies called Craig Technologies Aerospace Solutions, which was way too long. And if you've had too much coffee or too much beer, you can't say that.
Put that on
right?
a hat.
Yeah, exactly. It's like so we just called it CTAS, but it was a manufacturing spinoff. And it was it was supposed to be just like a little prototype shop that would support our engineering and technical services, for the government that we were doing. And then it just took on a life of its own.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so freaking cool.
I just typed into Google Carroll Craig. Here's what it says. Who is Carroll Craig? You ready? Have you ever done this before?
No, and I don't know that I want to.
All right, let's just see what happens.
Hold on, we want to see the Wikipedia
Yeah,
version.
this is just it just says
I
where
don't think
is
I'm even
Google.
in Wikipedia. I should be. First female-founded space company to go public. I should be in Wikipedia.
You should.
Yeah.
Can we add her to Wikipedia?
We can absolutely do that. You're probably there already, Carol. You
I
might
don't think so. That
underestimate
would mean,
yourself.
I don't know.
But Google says Carroll Craig is the founder, CEO, and CFO of Craig Technologies. They got that right. A company that specializes in aerospace and defense manufacturing. What's that?
Is that a little dig on me? They got it right? Is it? It's like I did.
No,
right.
no, that wasn't pointed at. That wasn't pointed at you.
Dig.
She said other people.
You dug.
You went there.
Craig leads general operations and helps create strategic engineering solutions for clients such as the Department of Defense, Boeing, and SpaceX. That's quite the client list.
It was written a long time ago. I'm not even sure who wrote that, but yes, okay.
Yeah.
I think it's coming out of Knox College. That's the reference.
Is that? Oh, that's what it is. So that's where I got one of my degrees.
Oh,
It's in my hometown of
fabulous.
Galesburg. It's a liberal arts school. And then I did a 3-2, so I did the liberal arts and then went to University of Illinois and got my engineering degree. It was one of that left brain, right brain kind of things that was going on.
That's
That's, well, Knox,
fabulous.
there you go.
Google knows.
There you go.
Well, you got to give us your version of the Wikipedia summary, Carol. How would you summarize and just get into your career?
I don't know how you could summarize. I'm like classic ADHD with my career, with everything I've done. I've tried to do as much as possible and feel like there's not enough time to do everything I want to do.
Start there. Start like you were in the military.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
right?
that wasn't even the start. So after I got my degrees, I actually went to work for the Naval Air Warfare Center as an engineer. It sounds really dumb. I was kind of the Charlie in Top Gun. So I helped design cockpit systems, and then I would brief the pilots on those systems. So they'd show up in their flight suits, OV-10s, F-14s, F-18, whatever it might be, and I would brief them on here's what we've made, the changes and all that kind of thing.
Goose.
And then I became Goose. Nice. So because I looked at all these guys sitting there in their flight suits, and I'm like, I want to wear my pajamas to work. Seriously, I really was. I'm lazy. I'm ultimately lazy. The truth is, I really am lazy. If I can find the shortest way or the easiest way to do something, I will. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to apply. And back then, women could not fly combat because it was you had to do any non-combat aircraft. I'm like, okay, fine, I don't care. It's not that big of a deal. And because my eyes were really bad, there's no way I was going to be a pilot. So I'm like, that's all right. I'll be a backseater. Because, little known fact, I'm afraid to fly. So it was kind of like, you know what? I just wanted to be in the back seat anyway. I'll see how it goes. I'll apply, and I really just applied to see what would happen, and then I got accepted.
Wow.
And then right after I got accepted to go through AOCS. So now think officer and gentleman. I went through AOCS in Pensacola, and so I get accepted, and then they changed the rules. Then they said women can fly combat, and they said that, oh, by the way, backseaters need to learn to fly front seat. And I'd never flown before. So it made the next several years very interesting that when I went through flight school, I had to learn to fly front seat. And then also I think I'm one of the first, if not the first, someone will correct me somewhere, officers to go through SEER school, which is like POW training on the West Coast. Because it was so new when they finally allowed women to fly combat. And before, women hadn't gone through that because they weren't flying combat aircraft. They're not going to get shot down, flying over Puerto Rico or something like that. So, And if you did, it wouldn't be a bad thing. So that's kind of was my transition. And then I'm in the military, and then it kind of kept going from there.
All right. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how freaked out were you first day you're in the cockpit, jet takes off? Let's start backseat first.
Okay.
You don't like to fly.
Hate to fly. So
that's a problem.
You're not just like jumping on a commercial airliner.
right.
You're in a jet.
Well, no, so different. So the first time I actually flew after getting into the Navy was front seat, and it was a T-34, which is a turbo prop. So it's a front back.
Yeah.
And I was a little freaked out. I think I was unrealistic. I think I really thought that the dude in the back was flying. I don't know how I survived. I don't know how I did my takeoffs and landings. I'm thinking, it'll save me. I don't honestly. I have very little recollection as well because I was so stressed. I honestly didn't eat for like 3 months. I was just like terrified because I had to do these front seat flights.
Oh, wow.
So that was, but then after a while, it's like, okay, this is cool. Once I was in the back seat, that was in a different aircraft. That was in a P-3 Orion, which is a big, 4-engine type thing. It's like not sexy, has a bathroom, it's got a microwave. So I was like, okay, this is whatever. And I'm back seat, and it's big. I threw up all the time, just because I have a super weak stomach, so I wasn't that terrified. But I think at that point, though, the most terrifying thing for me was flying that T-34. So after that, subsequent flights, like I flew in an F-14 backseat, super cool. Flew in my last flight in the Navy, my last day in the Navy, I got a backseat in an F-18.
Nice.
And it was the coolest thing. So I started to relax a little at that point. I wasn't as terrified until I got out and started flying commercial, and then I was a basket case again.
Oh, wow.
I mean, up until maybe about a few years ago.
Is it because you're not in the cockpit, you can't see what's happening?
Yes.
Okay.
That's exactly it. So United Airlines, way back when, you could flick to Channel 9 and you could hear when they were transitioning from the different, throughout whatever the flight path. And I would do that, and then that stopped. And then I started flying JetBlue. And JetBlue, Channel 13, you can see speed, altitude, you can see all that kind of stuff.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's stupid.
But was it like your knowledge of it that made you more afraid? You know what I mean? Like understanding?
I think so. Well, no, I think it was a control thing. Because knowledge should have made me more comfortable. I should be like my husband. As soon as, the thing starts moving, he's like out. He's a pilot. He's F-18 guy, F-14 guy, and then he flies for JetBlue. It should have made me more comfortable from that respect. But I think it was more of, I just want to know. Like, if we're going to die, I want to know.
Yeah.
I don't like surprise. I hate surprises. I don't want surprises. I wouldn't drink on airplanes because I don't want to be drunk when I die. I'm like, that's kind of a bummer. That's the last thoughts. I mean, I had all this irrational thought that I still occasionally have as well. So yeah, that's me.
That's awesome.
Carol, I have to wonder, where you were entering that space at a time where women weren't allowed to fly. Were there people questioning that kind of archaic rule set? Was that conversations you were having with your colleagues? What was the dynamic like there, and then why did it change?
It's interesting. So even after I had already gone through, I had gotten out, was following my husband around. So this is a few years later. There were still guys that said women should not be flying combat aircraft. And they were friends of ours, and I would get in discussions. I never got in arguments because it's like, you argue somebody out of their opinion. It makes no sense.
Yeah,
right?
You're not going to change your mind.
Yeah, you don't do that. But I think when I went through, I didn't go through with a chip on my shoulder. I think I went through thinking, this is so awesome. I'm super blessed. So I had a really positive attitude. So my instructors, I kind of took the criticism or took the feedback as a positive. And so I don't know that everyone always does that,
right?
Women or men.
Right.
Sometimes if you've got that chip and then you're just kind of negative, then you get what you receive, what you give kind of a thing. Yeah. And so I think most of my instructors were great. I think I might have been given a little preferential treatment sometimes, and I mean that in that one time when I was flying the front seat stuff, I screwed up we're getting ready to land, and I put the gear down too soon, and he said, "Oh, you put the gear down, you're not supposed to do it yet," and I jammed it back up, which you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to wait for it to cycle, and it was kind of like, oh crap, that is like a bad thing. So we had to actually fly around the tower, have him look at it, do all the whole thing. We land, and he gave me an average for my grade for it. He should have given me a below average. is what I think. But I think in some ways, just because I was like, oh my gosh, okay, I learned from this, and the attitude, he kind of,
That's cool.
said it was all right. So, I mean, the point of that story is it's all over the map. I think now, though, it's not even, a consideration. I think you notice, like I'll notice if I'm on a commercial airliner and I look up, I'm like, the woman pilot, that's super cool. But you don't go, oh shit, is she going to be any good? Which that happened a lot in the early days military. They kind of didn't think. NFO was a little different with me in the back seat. And what am I going to do? Like dial in the wrong number, or, call the wrong call, whatever. But the pilot side, I think it was a little more, questionable sometimes about whether they respected the women or not.
Man,
Interesting, huh?
it's interesting.
How do you think let's get into kind of your makeup as an entrepreneur. So like these life experiences that you had, flying, those kind of things, can you look back and see a clear path to what led to Craig Industries and technologies?
That's why it's funny. It's been called Craig Industries. Maybe I should have named it that, because that also.
We're just going to keep calling it the wrong thing.
Exactly. How's Craig products going?
Yeah.
No, that's right. All your life experiences push you in a certain direction. I think, I do know that the reason I liked having Craig Technologies, a company, so much is because I am so all over the place, ADHD, or just I want to do everything, that I could live vicariously through all of the contracts, all of the people.
Yeah.
Everything was fast moving, and I liked that. It changed daily. And there's a lot of stress that goes along with that, but I'm also very competitive. I ran track in college, and so there's a level of that competitive. I have this combination of insecurity and competitiveness that's probably perfect, because it makes me, angry and whatever enough to succeed. And on the other side, I'm a people pleaser, and it's all those things. I don't know, that kind of drive me to do what I'm doing, and then succeed no matter what. That's part of it, right?
It sounds
Don't give
like
up.
you've had your ear to a cup on the door of me and my therapist talking. Like,
Really?
I'm not joking. Like 100%.
Yeah.
Like that's yes.
It's exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it does seem to
Yeah.
be true that some of the most exceptional people are like the least content with their performance,
Yeah.
because that ill contentness that you have about your product or always wanting to be better, it just keeps elevating you. It's terribly ironic.
I always think of like, and I don't. How do I put this? I'm just going to put it. Like you see like athletes like Jordan, right, and Brady, and these guys that are like, I didn't make my high school basketball team, and it pissed him off, and he went for it, and he referenced that. And he would actually make up stories. I'm not saying you do this. This is next level. But like he would make up stories in his head about his opponents that were not true, just that he would play them harder.
Oh wow!
And Brady, same thing. Like even to this day. And we're talking to Cassandra Hartford 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about how, and this is something that I definitely am guilty of. Sometimes we spend so much of our time trying to prove the 5 people wrong that don't believe in us, and we don't listen to the 150 or 200 people that do.
That's true.
But it's those 5 that get that fire going,
That drive us.
That drive us.
Because as much as we want to claim, I don't care what you think. But your opinion doesn't matter to me. It's like, oh yeah, your opinion does matter. It bothers me.
Absolutely.
And then it's how you handle that.
Yeah.
Do you let it, consume you,
Yeah.
or do you say, all right, fine, I'll prove you wrong?
Right.
And it's funny, I don't have to make stuff up, because I can just think of how I've been treated and some of the comments I've heard and some of the stuff that I'm like, okay, I'll just remember these things, and just watch,
Yep.
what. So, but that's good. I think we have to do that. So
I agree.
Yeah, and even you mentioned like the sports thing. I can just look back and see how pivotal it seems like in a lot of people's lives, like their involvement in athletics also like kind of shapes that mentality. You feel that way?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no question. I mean, I think it was. I had, when I went to college at Knox, I had a friend of mine call me a Renaissance woman. I had no idea what that meant. was like, are you insulting? I don't know, are you insulting me? Like, what does that mean? But she said, you've got all these things, the musician, and I was a geek in math and computer science, my degree there, and then athletics and all that kind of stuff. And she said, you do all this. And I think that was what was the best combination for me, to have all of those parts. I guess it's well-rounded, whatever it is. It gives me a different perspective. Yep. So not just the athlete and the jock side, and not just an engineer, not just the musician. All of that kind of stuff together gave me a different outlook.
Yeah, you're definitely blessed to have like all those different parts of your brain firing. Most people don't. I mean, to be able to have the artistic side and to have the maths and like all these other, like the creative and the like, that's cheers to your designer. You know what I mean? That's really cool.
But people say, I've heard, what's the phrase, jack of all trades, master of none. Like, that's a bad thing.
Right.
I don't think it's a bad thing.
No.
I'm good at a lot of stuff. I don't know if I'm great at anything.
Yeah.
But I'm good at a lot of stuff, and I'm perfectly happy with that.
Yeah.
Do you know what the rest of that quote is? That's about William Shakespeare too.
No,
Did you know
I
that?
don't.
Yeah.
No.
The rest of the quote is but oftentimes better than a master of one. Yeah.
See?
Isn't it interesting?
What?
Yeah.
Look at you.
No, I didn't know.
Now you drop your mic. That's good, man.
Yeah. Super
That
cool.
is my next tattoo.
I like that.
Well, it was going to be sometimes.
have a tattoo?
Fabulous, Gail.
I just have the ankle ones. See, I'm a little
okay.
bit of a coward with the
Okay.
tattoos, but I'm getting there. I have one designed that it's angel wings. I love angel wings. And I love the Bradbury quote, sometimes you just have to jump and build your wings on the way down.
Yep.
And I have that like painted in our walls and stuff like that, but I'm going to get that tattooed there. But
Good
I kind of
for you.
like the other half of the Shakespeare
Yeah,
quote.
but
That might
that's
be
really,
good.
really
master
cool.
one. It's like especially in this environment, economy, like this phase of entrepreneurialism. It's like the ability to operate
I'm going
in
to check the AC, guys.
Are you a little bit cold, man?
I'm always
are you?
cold. Look at me. I'm like got my jacket on. I'm like, oh my gosh, no, this isn't bad.
See, it's up to 77.
Oh, see, I'm comfortable. That's crazy. No.
But yeah, man, we've been given like, especially just on like operating in the digital media space. It's like we have so many tools available to us now that artists and advertisers didn't have in the 60s, 70s, and you really can operate in multiple domains more effectively, can branch out into different ventures easier, and generalists win. It's like...
I think that's absolutely accurate. I mean, everything's changing so quickly, too, so you have to be able to adapt,
Yep.
right? I mean, that's how you succeed.
Absolutely.
So give us the birth of Craig X. No, I'm just kidding.
Actually, you know what? There is a Craig X, just so you know. Craig X was the flight test platform that went up to the International Space Station. We actually, back in 2016, we won a grant.
No way.
You couldn't
It's
you couldn't have
prolific. It's
tossed
prolific.
that more.
It's all that research.
Because I'm telling you, Craig
I'm just
X,
literally Googling things
Seriously.
right now.
Craig X was the birth, sort of, or the shift of CTAS, the manufacturing side, to Sidus Space. It really was, because we won this grant to manufacture a flight test platform that would go up on the International Space Station on the external, and you could test like materials, you could test all kind of the subsystems for satellites, and we won this contract. And so, because we've been manufacturing hardware for a long time for space, and so we got this grant and we did that, and that's kind of where it was.
Wait, but was this before SpaceX?
It was
Did you
not.
predate?
No,
I
did
thought
not.
you had him. I thought you had him. I was about to give
we
you
had to do like Craig Dash X, and we actually thought about it. We're like, oh my god, we're like, he doesn't know who we are, so we don't care. So no, it was after, but yeah. So the question then was what? Now I forget what the question was.
Craig Technologies. I just wanted you to unpack, how did your jump into aerospace unfold? Can you tell us the early days of that?
It was moving here. So when I started, I got out of the Navy because I injured myself during SEER school. I actually hurt my knee. It wasn't a big deal, but then I went to a Navy doctor, and they're like, oh, we can fix that. And they did like this cutting the bone, patella realignment. They were like, oh, you're built wrong. Completely couldn't run anymore. I mean, I was like, okay, if I can't run, I can't fly.
Oh my goodness.
Right.
I'm stationed in Hawaii. Of course, I'd met my husband, my Top Gun husband.
Awesome.
And I'm like, okay.
And what's your husband's name?
John.
To John, everyone.
To John.
To John.
Cheers.
John.
To John.
So I met John, and I'm like, all right, you know what? If I can't fly, I'm not going to stay in the military. So I got out, and then I'm kind of following him around. And it was at that point it's hard to find jobs. I have engineering degrees, computer science was another one, and it was hard to find a job, and I was kind of like, what do I do? And somebody recommended that I incorporate, and just in case, and then that started the track of creating my own company, and it was just consulting for a while, and it was government contracting, because then I discovered that there were set-asides, and I'm woman-owned, service-disabled, veteran-owned, and I'm adopted, I think I mentioned that, I'm part Cuban, so minority. So all of these things kind of moved me toward government contracting. Man. And that was the beginning of my transition.
I wish I was a part Cuban, injured female. I'm just kidding. No, I don't.
You know what? When people,
in all seriousness, I mean, people say there are people that are like, oh, well, she did because she should.
Well, it's funny.
She earned it.
So one of the things that, and this is where you get pissed off, because in the newspaper there was an article a few years ago. It was probably 10, 12 years ago. About the company, what we were doing. And that was when anybody could make comments at the bottom there. And somebody made a comment, well, the only reason she's successful is because the government handed her all these contracts because she's woman-owned. I'm like, not at all. No. I mean, you can be that, but there's a whole bunch of other companies that are small, woman-owned service, all that kind of thing. And nothing was handed.
And 100%, like one of the hardest things about getting those contracts, is keeping those contracts.
Yeah.
You've got to perform.
Yeah.
And you got to perform at a high level. And the auditing that you get, and the way that you have to report, and all the things you have to do at that level is insane. It would be my worst freaking nightmare.
Yeah, it is not. There are not a lot of people who want to do it. And then if you're 8A, which is more the minority, that's only for a certain period of time. And so a lot of companies would be certified as 8A, and then when they graduated, they're like, what can I do? Well, we were 8A, but here we are 25 years later with Craig Technologies, and we're still going. I mean, we didn't do the huge growth, and our highest we probably had 500 employees, but that's kind of you do up and down.
Right.
But we're still here, we're still relevant, we're still supporting, and
I love it.
Doing what we're doing. But that came out of starting as being a consultant, then realizing I could do the government stuff. And then, I mean, that story from that point was just, no money. So I started with $150. And I never had any investors or anything. Until I took Sidus Space public, I had no investors at all. It was banks. It was traditional. It was 8 credit cards maxed. It was all that kind of, any way I could. It was, paying Peter to, moving rocks around, Peter to pay Paul, kind of stuff like, hey, going to my husband going, hey, will you sign this? The bank needs your signature. And he's like, what is it? I'm like, it doesn't matter. We'll be fine. I was like, because he was the one, he brought the money to the table. He was the guy who invested in Microsoft back in 1985 or something crazy like that. So it was his nest egg that
he invested in you.
And it's exactly. Oh, look at that.
Smart bet.
Yeah, and that's what he said. Because I was like, I'm sorry, all the stresses and everything. He's like, no, it's exactly. He said, no, I invested in you.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right.
Yep. Well, there you go.
Look at that.
There you go.
We're still together to this
day. That's awesome.
Matter of fact, our anniversary is, which I keep forgetting. Didn't I tell you? Wednesday.
Wednesday.
No, when's your event? Thursday?
No, Thursday.
That's when the anniversary is.
Okay. On the 30th,
so
everybody.
On the 30th with the event.
John, on the 30th. I remembered.
Happy anniversary.
Exactly.
So you said 35 years?
No, I don't think I said that. But
you
no,
didn't?
I don't. Maybe I might have made that up. Did I say that?
I don't think.
I don't think. It could be. No.
How many
Hopefully
years?
we'll get to 35. No, actually, see, I hate when you ask. I don't know. I have to do the math. John knows all this stuff, and I always forget.
It's cool. You don't have to know.
I think it's 27.
Yay! Look at that.
I think.
Hey, anything past 25, you can just
That's
whatever.
what I think. Yeah. Am I wearing my I have a necklace that he got me for my 25th. It was
so it's at least 25.
Exactly. I do. That's how I know. And I can do the math on that because it was around COVID, so it must be 27. So he made this. It was a custom-made grand piano with these diamonds and all this kind of thing, and that was our 25th.
Amazing.
And well, guess what I got him? He keeps talking about this. I don't know. I saved his life. I set him up for an appointment for COVID shots. I was on our anniversary. I'm like, honey, I love you. And he's like, oh, we're going to get COVID shots. I'm like, well, yes, but actually your appointment's different than mine. We're not going together because mine's early in the day and yours. But he's like, I can't believe you got me that for our anniversary. I'm like, I saved your life.
Yep.
That's the way I look at it.
That's exactly what you did.
Yeah. So
that's exactly what you did.
That's what I think.
COVID hit this area really well. Let's say. In my little sphere.
Yeah.
it hit hard.
I think it hit hard.
Yeah, it really did hit hard.
I think so.
I mean, I counted just people that I knew.
Yeah.
7 different people passed away.
Yeah, we lost friends as well.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's
I mean,
sad.
it was, to be in Florida, there is that benefit of we have the outdoors. It's, it was, you
Right.
can be outside in your own environment. So there were people that had a lot worse.
Yeah.
But yes, I think it was hard.
Yeah. It was tough. It was tough watching. Like some of the folks that passed away, it was sheer. I'm not staying in this hospital.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
Yeah.
it's and I think that's what the frustrating thing was for me. We were going to get on a COVID thing, but I don't know. Now I want to talk about it. But one of the frustrating things to me about the whole thing was that there are still people in this community thinking it was made up.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting at the funeral, and I'm surrounded by people that weren't
Yeah.
wearing masks and believing that it was an issue.
Didn't have shots, didn't whatever. Yeah, no,
right.
no.
And it was very, very alarming to me and frustrating to kind of watch how to see the ugliness of it and how it turned political, even though it wasn't a political thing, and that was tough to watch.
We had a few hard ones. There were a few, and there were some that they didn't have the shot.
Yeah.
And one in particular was a woman who worked for me from when we started our manufacturing facility, and just an incredible person, and didn't get the shot, but then finally realized, okay, we need to do this, and had her appointment for the shot, and it was like 2 weeks after she passed away.
Oh my goodness.
And that was a tough one. That was just tough. Like, and she was a, can I say badass on the thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, she really was a badass. I mean, she was
awesome.
a female machinist. She was just so cool and just amazing. And one of those where you thought nothing would ever take her down, and it was heartbreaking. So and there were a couple, and I'm sure everyone has those stories. You're like, dang it, we really believe that could have been prevented. You know, I mean, it's like you can't force people to do something. I get it, but you don't like when someone says something isn't real, and you've been impacted by it. That's
it's a tough thing to watch. I mean, it's a small. This becomes a very small community when things like that happen. It is still kind of a small community, but it becomes smaller. Like when good things or bad things happen.
On the good side of COVID, like, I loved it because my family was together. We had to be together. It was great. We're very blessed. We had bought our house years and years ago on the water. So, we can't complain. That was great. And my office in Merritt Island was about 5 minutes away. When I was tired of my family, I'm like, hey, I got to go print checks and do stuff at the office. They need me to make sure there's no links. See you later. So I would go do that. But I missed that a little bit. Our kids were still... I can't remember now. I guess my son had graduated, but he was going to Eastern. And then my daughter was at Merritt Island High School, so still young enough. And it was cool to be able to be around each other. It really was, the 24/7. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah,
so I think of that as a blessing.
That's cool.
In disguise a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually moved. We were living over down this way in the northeast, like Turkey Creek area of Palm Bay. And we moved to Rockledge and got a place on the river in Rockledge during that. And that was a very relaxing thing to like get onto the river, and just it was good for the brain.
Absolutely. And that's why I say we were blessed, right? Because not everybody could do that.
No.
My parents were in independent living, and having their meals brought to the door, and all that kind of stuff. They're in their 90s, and so it's like they weren't. But for all of us, I think we were. At least our group, we were blessed. And we joke we were super spreaders, but we finally decided that if we're going down together. Like, seriously, we were like, all right, I don't care, it's your birthday. At one point, I think we were celebrating our birthday party.
Herd immunity?
It was a little bit like that. We had 70 of us at a party at our house, but it was like, okay, as long as everyone is cool with this,
Right.
I mean, like, but yeah, let's just be quarantined together and we'll be all happy.
Pretty interesting time, man. Like being in Ohio at the time in that little rural town, it was like, the whole thing was just a mess with like how it was handled, and no one knew what to think information wise. The whole thing was so polarizing, but I felt like the silver lining that we got out of it was really just really just coming together locally. You know what I mean? We had a lot of people that, like the governor in Ohio shut all the restaurants down like the first week that it was like, you know what I mean? And they were, it was really tight restrictions. And there's these little restaurants that are like, they're running on the wire, man. It's like one month, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So just the reliance that it went from like this, what we felt like were global restrictions or national restrictions to just this reliance on our just like region and town and the people in it, was
Absolutely.
really cool to see,
I think there was a lot of positives, but again, you never want that at the expense of the people that we lost,
Right. Absolutely.
So we hope that this doesn't happen again. And it's not gone away.
No.
Yeah.
Obviously. I mean, that's a little, people, we forget.
Yep.
We start to forget things. It's kind of like the war. I remember when John was, still in the military and after the Iraq War and after like shock and awe and all that kind of stuff, they were still over there flying. And I was like, how come we never hear anything about it? It's like people forget.
Right.
I mean, they're just like, it's not in the news. And it's the same thing with COVID. You'll see every once in a while, the death toll or whatever, that you're still losing people or whatever. But it's kind of, we start to forget. So we shouldn't forget.
No, we should not forget. We absolutely should not forget.
And that was the COVID bummers part of our podcast.
Yeah, we got to break.
Did I take us there or did you take us there?
I did. It was me. I think I did. I think you said something about during COVID, and then
that was
and then that brought up a lot of things that now I don't have to share with my therapist.
There you go. Perfect.
We got to bring it down low so we can start it. You know what I mean?
Saved you some money. All right. This is great.
And don't email me asking me who my therapist is. I'm not telling you.
Carol, can you break down for us the main innovations, technologies, like what exactly with your companies that you were excited about and a part of? Like, give us
You need to top off?
Sure.
the technical language behind it, because you can read the. I'm good, man. I got a beer. Thank you. You can read the synopsis on your website and those kind of things, but obviously there's a lot of complex moving pieces that you're a part of.
Yeah. So that's tough. So with Sidus Space, it's interesting. I don't know. We have technologies that we're excited about, but I think it's almost like it's more of an infrastructure is what we've done, what we're doing when it comes to space and this new space ecosystem, the commercial space ecosystem. So we've been manufacturing space hardware for many, many years, over a decade. This is different than a lot of our competitor mates that are out in the commercial space satellite world and all that. They weren't really doing that. So this isn't new to us. We manufacture custom type of space rated hardware every single day, supporting other customers. So what we did is we created our own satellite, and I guess that's what I'm probably excited about is that it's 3D printed. It's 3D printed satellite. And from what we can see, nobody else is doing that. I mean, you saw Relativity Space just launched a partially 3D printed rocket, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing!" No one had done that with a satellite yet. And we had actually when I mentioned the Craig X platform that was up in the ISS, that actually was manufactured with the same 3D material. Thank you. That we are building our satellite out of, and so I'm excited about that as a technology. But it isn't. I mean, it's cool. But I think what I'm most excited about is just more of the business thought process of what we're doing. It's our space as an infrastructure. So our satellite, we call it a multi-mission satellite for a multi-mission constellation. It isn't just about a CubeSat that's going to be focused on one thing, one customer, one mission. It was more of, okay, let's build something that can change and grow with our changing and growing space ecosystem. And for me, that meant a bigger satellite, with some redundancies that could stay on orbit longer and to be able to integrate multiple technologies, not just one. And so and also to integrate customer needs, because there's a lot of that happening in this, ecosystem of entrepreneurs. Great technologies, how do they get it on orbit? How do they get space proven? How do they, without spending a ton of money? And so our platform allows them to do that, but at the same time, as we were setting that up, we were kind of going, yeah, but we've got this satellite, lots of room on it. What if we integrate this type of camera, and this sensor? Now we have a picture or a data or some value that nobody else has. Yeah. And so that's really what it is. So It's not a sexy story. That's the problem. I mean, it's kind of like, it's like my P3s. I flew P3s and people are like, oh, that's great. What'd your husband do? It's like, oh, that's cool. What was it like in Top Gun? I'm like, it's the same thing with the space infrastructure. I mean, it's like, well, do we have the latest and greatest? But what we have is the ability to integrate the latest and greatest. So you think about the entrepreneurs that come out of here and they're like, I've got this great technology and here's what I think we can solve.
Yep.
We're the rest of that. We're the piece behind it. And that generates revenue. I mean, that is a revenue generator for us. We have multiple types of revenue. When you teach classes or when you think about business, if your business can have multiple revenue streams, that's a good thing.
It's a wonderful thing.
And that's really what we have. So that's a long answer to what that technology, what I'm excited about. But I am excited about Sidus. We keep going around. It was space as a service, and then I found out some of the other companies are now saying that, satellite as a service. So just today, as I was listening to a podcast on something, I went, you know what we really do is space and defense as a service. So now I know if there's another company starts using that, they stole it.
Done.
There's no question who came up with it first.
We should get this trademarked.
I trademark just about everything, I swear. I don't know if you guys know Mark Malik in this area.
Yes.
So he has been my patent lawyer since 2006 or 7.
You want to hear something crazy?
What?
I was about to say, have you ever heard of Mark Malik?
You did not.
I was about to.
So you asked Mark. Mark taught me to trademark everything, patent everything. I mean, patent gets a little expensive, but trademarks, we have a lot of trademarks, and we got the TM and then the R. And for a while, I went on a kick about URLs, so I'd be texting him at 10 o'clock at night after maybe being out for dinner and drinks or something, going, I have the greatest URL, www, where in the world is Lizzie Sanchez or something like that, which is my biological name. And he's just like, oh, seriously? I'm like, yeah, can we get it? And he's like, okay, fine. And then at some point, my IT guy gave me this is the truth, big long list. And he's like, can we get rid of any of these? I'm like, yeah, we can get rid of about 80% of those, but let's keep, where is Lizzie Sanchez though?
That's awesome.
But but it's true, the patent, and that was Mark. Mark's a really great friend. I mean, he's a personal friend.
Well, I mean,
he's amazing.
He's a wonderful dude. I mean, across the board.
Amazing.
So I'm on JA. I'm on the JA board.
Did you know I'm on the JA board? I still never show up.
I did not know that.
Did you know I've been a part of JA since 2007?
Come
On the board that long.
Get
I
it.
teach classes.
Nice.
I really should show up to a meeting, and I would have known that you were on the board.
You would have known.
Are you going to Business Hall of Fame?
I'm actually doing the ask.
Oh.
Yes.
Nice.
Because I ask for money for a living anyway. So
Okay.
It's just.
Don't ask me
And John
because
was
we're
just
one
on
of the
the
top.
podcast, yeah.
Don't ask me. We're one of the top sponsors. I've already
Look,
given my.
I'm going to
I'm just
give a
kidding.
speech that is so powerful that you're just going to want to write a check.
Okay, fine.
I'm just
So that's how
kidding.
you know Mark. Yeah.
I'm just
So
kidding.
Mark joined JA right around, I think around almost the same time I did. So yeah,
That's awesome.
There's a lot of good people on that board. That is an
They're
amazing
all,
board.
They're all wonderful. So last week we had John Alpazar here, who's being honored for this.
Yep.
At the event. One of the few being honored at the event, and I've known John for quite some time. I went to school with his son David.
Okay.
We were in elementary school
Oh,
together.
I went to Cuba with John and his wife. So how about that?
You know what?
I always got to one up everything. I told you
I
I'm
hope
competitive.
John's watching this. I
You know
still
what?
haven't gotten an invite to the house.
Nice.
Except when I was doing some investing stuff for him. I grabbed his paperwork in his driveway. That's the only time I've gotten to that.
Awesome guy, actually.
He's
Great,
amazing.
Very great people. It was so much fun. We had a great time, and he's an awesome guy. I'm glad that he's getting honored. He deserves it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Good old John. To John.
To John.
everyone.
Oh,
To John.
cheers.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Well,
There we go. Can you still hear me?
Quite the wine buff, too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're good to
Is it
go.
wine? Yeah. That's why I'm not invited, because I just drink beer. I do not like wine. It's terrible. People have tried, and I'm like, can't do it.
One of these days, I'm going to introduce you to the founder of Sailfish.
Okay.
You'll be able to nerd out on beer with them all day long.
That's
Dave,
cool.
Dave Boucher.
Where are they based at? Are they
So they're based out of Fort Pierce.
okay?
They have a amazing distribution right out of Fort Pierce. They bought an old Sears building in downtown, turned it into their brewery, and they do all their canning there and everything else.
cool.
And in the front, they have a really cool brewery and restaurant and stuff. And then they have another tap house over in Vero Beach, and then they want to. I'm trying to make it happen. They want to open up a tap house here in Brevard,
Oh, that'd be awesome.
right?
You know what? I think when I said
Get 'em at
sailfish,
Merritt Island.
I agree. We need it in Merritt Island. Was it in a smaller area like years ago? Did they start in
They did. They started in a smaller area. These guys.
Was it just down from was it within walking distance of the marina?
I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
I do know they started in a smaller thing.
I think I'm asking my husband, but I think that's why I knew of sailfish.
Yeah, these guys, their brand is stupid good. They
Oh my
are
gosh.
so in South Florida, they have more taps in South Florida than Budweiser.
That's awesome.
No joke.
I told someone that the other day, and I was hoping I wasn't making it up.
You are not making it up, sir. It's a fact. And
That's incredible.
in the South Florida area too. I mean, of course, there are some Publixes up here as well, but in the Publixes across the board, their IPA is ranked number 3 of all IPAs sold in Publixes. In the ones that they're in, and the 2 other companies ahead of them are like multi-billion-dollar companies.
When did this kind of? When did they really snowball and start to take off? I mean,
It's in the last like 4 years.
okay, so fairly recent.
That
Okay,
it's really began to
Good for them.
pick up, and now they just got into 52 WalMarts, and
I'd love to meet my husband. Would really, again, he would
I'm
as
going to
well.
make that happen.
That would be awesome. That's really impressive.
That's
I'm
what
so
we do.
glad.
We connect
You
people.
make things happen.
Yeah, we connect people.
Works great.
GST certified. You know what that is?
No.
Get shit done. Put that on your card.
That's your tattoo after the other
Do you know
tattoo.
what my tagline is? Well, I think I said it when I was speaking. Not that, but it's the MTSUAYG.
What's that?
Make this shit up as you go. Not anymore. Not anymore. Okay, people. I want to make sure that any of my shareholders and anyone, my employees, I don't do that anymore. But that was in the early days. It was, you know what?
Do you have that tattooed on your other shoulder?
No, I
blade?
do not.
Okay,
I do not. But I had a local artist make something for me. He does I don't know what you call it, but do you know Eric Lamar? Do you know that?
No.
He's a local artist, very, very talented, but he made me an MTSUAYG, and I have that in sculpture kind of a thing. But yeah, I stole that actually from a friend. He's the one, I trademarked it. So he told me about it, about his business methodology, whatever, and he wrote it up there, and I'm like, that's awesome. And then I called Mark Malik. I said, trademark this. And the guy that I stole it from works for me, so he couldn't take it back. But anyway, so yeah.
Well, Carol, you have some.
I love it.
You have some longevity in the aerospace field. Can you maybe tell us more about just what that's taken? Like, has it been? You said Matt was talking about some pretty stringent regulations, that it's probably not the easiest space to operate in for a long time.
Yeah.
How have you made it this far? What are the hardships, the successes?
That's a good question. And of course, when you first said you have some longevity, I'm like, that's the polite way to say it. You've been around a while. You're old. You've been around a while.
That
You
came
with
off
your
wrong.
silver tongue.
Yeah, that was really
But
impressive.
she knew what you were doing.
Right.
I know. I picked it up. I'm like, whatever. It's funny because I sit there and I think this is so bad, but I think back when I first started, I incorporated in 99, but really started the government stuff in 2002, 2003. And I have a friend who still works for me today, and it was us together. And I remember meeting women or male CEOs and thinking, damn, they're old. I think I'm probably older now than they were then. And so I think like, oh man, but hopefully I'm cooler than they were. But yeah, it's been a lot of years.
Your cool meter is
it
off the
good?
chain.
Okay, good.
It's and I'm I don't think I'm that cool, but I aspire to be
Okay.
cool.
All right. That makes
you
you feel
and I
a little-
recognize cool.
You recognize cool. Feel a little
you're-
bit better.
yeah, you're cool.
Well,
You're cool.
so it has been a long time. Think back, and I guess that's Craig Tech, 22 years, maybe 23 years, whatever it is. I think it went super fast. So when I think about how'd you last this long, I think because I just kept learning, and kept, it changed. I mentioned that before. It continues to change. You learn more. Failure's not an option. I just kind of keep going and kind of roll with it. But I definitely listen. I think that's one thing. So when you talk about the difficulties of government contracting and aerospace and that kind of thing, you take note and you go, okay, do I accept this or do I think this is too hard? And in our case, we've just accepted it. If we need AS 9100 certified. So that's a certification when you're manufacturing hardware that's space rated is one of those things, or even aviation. There are not a lot of companies, even in the commercial space right now, that have that certification because they don't really need it. We don't look at it as you don't need it. It means that I'm going to have quality products. It means I'm going to do my job well, right?
Right, right.
Okay, I could not do that, but I think it's important. So I think that's the way we kind of looked at it, and maybe that's why we've sustained, this long. And I have employees, though, I will say this, I have some loyal employees who have been with me for decades. Not a lot of decades, I'm not that old, but you know what I mean? Like 15, 20 years maybe, and 10, even 10 years. I mean, in this market, when you have someone who's stayed that long.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
The turnover that I guarantee you, Harris would love to have employees that are staying around for 10 years and still. I mean, there's the turnover rate at these massive government contractors is insane.
It's pretty high. Well, that's because it's tough, and this is from the last 20 years or so. When you're a government contractor, especially as a sub, maybe even, you just think of it as a badge change.
Right.
You don't really connect with your company that they look at. Okay, they're writing my check,
right.
And that was something in the beginning. Because I'd been a government contractor. I'd actually worked for the government. I'd been a government contractor, all those. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want a company that has employees that feel like, they're just a number, or that's a staffing company. We're not a staffing company. Right. We care about people. We know who they are. We wanted to make sure also that their benefits were top. Because if they didn't have to worry about their families, then they can focus on the mission. My job was to take care of them and make sure that everything they needed to do to succeed. So it goes back to infrastructure. I'm always infrastructure. Yep. I'm not necessarily this technology and the sexy whatever kind of thing, but we're the backbone that creates success for others, whether it's employees or the space ecosystem or whatever it might be. And so that probably is what kind of kept sustaining us. And I have people like, what's your exit strategy? And they always say, you should always start with an exit strategy. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. My exit strategy is, when it's, and this is like with Craig Tech, which is a private company, when it's time, it's time.
Yep.
One of the things I do want to do, and we have a pretty senior leadership, is I want to bring in younger talent. Yeah. I want to get them as excited as I was and still am. And then, I'll work my way toward that beach. Well, with Sidus Space, though, that's my focus right now, actually. Right. And there's a lot to be done there. So that still keeps me, it's so exciting. That's part of it.
What's your involvement, or was your involvement with like Boeing, SpaceX? Like, what do those relationships look like in your space?
So we've been a subcontractor to all of them, Blue Origin, everybody else. I mean, with the space industry here in traditional space, we actually manufactured the hardware, multiple areas, hardware for the Artemis 1 program. So that SLS rocket. We've been a part of every single major U.S. and commercial space program that's out there.
That's
for
incredible.
The last how many years? And that's
do you watch all the launches? Like,
SLS was a big one that kept getting moved, and I just fingers crossed. I'm like, if something goes wrong, please don't let it be our fault. Please don't let it be our fault. And even when they had some delays, they had these things called quick disconnects that they said, there's an issue, and that's why it was delayed. And I'm calling my guys, going, were those, because I know we did quick disconnects. I'm like, were those ours? They're like, nope, we had the 8-inch ones. Those were 4-inch ones. I'm like, okay. So, and I want the program to be successful. Right. I love that Artemis 1 and women astronauts and what they're really doing. But it was really important also that it succeeds, because every time there's a success with space, just like with relativity, it's a success for everybody.
Right.
So we've had hardware on every bit of that rocket and we supported all those guys. Yeah.
That's really
amazing.
Cool.
Which is cool. It is cool. We don't tell our story probably well enough. Even Sidus Space, public company, trying to get out there, but it's hard to, pat yourself on the back, or even just, sometimes you just don't tell your story well. You have to have other people do it for you.
I have an in-house branding and marketing team here, so if you need help telling the story, I mean, we're always happy to
They're all right. They get the job done.
I think I say no too much, maybe, because my team will be like, I got this great idea. I'm like, I don't know, but we're trying to get the word out. That's probably our biggest challenge, is that we've flown under the radar for so long, and now we're trying to go, hey, when I talked on Wednesday, if people knew the stuff that we've done, and, bet on the jockey, not on the horse. But we've been doing this a long time. We're not going to fail.
Right.
We're going to keep doing it. We're going to do it smart.
Yeah.
Well, Carol, just to operate and be a peer in a space with names like Bezos and Musk is unbelievable. I mean, it's the coolest. I don't know if that trips you out, or being, honestly, the first episode of the Joe Rogan Experience I ever watched was still alive at the time, and it was when Elon was on for the first time. Do you remember this, when he was I think he smoked a joint with Joe.
Yeah. I do.
And everybody, all the shareholders were freaking out.
That was, in my mind, a little bit of poor judgment on his side, but that's okay.
But I wish I knew you at the time, because I would have been like, man, Carol's got to be geeking out about this.
So we're all going to pass around some joints.
Okay, no. I'm going to tell you right now, big
I'm
no
joking.
on that one.
I'm joking.
I know you are.
We don't do that.
I know. No, it is funny. He's an interesting individual. I've never met him. I haven't met Bezos, and I have not met Branson. If anyone knows Richard Branson, I really want to meet him. Just saying, that's
All
one
right.
thing. But
I'm going to take this as a personal challenge.
I'm
to introduce
serious.
you to Richard Branson.
With Elon Musk, though, it doesn't matter what your opinion is on him or whatever. He is the reason that commercial space is where it is today.
Yep.
And I think people forget. If I remember correctly, it was 2002. It's been 20 plus years since he started this. I mean, it isn't like this just happened overnight. No. And he's that persistent. I'm going to succeed, and he's got that. I think maybe ADHD, ADD. He's got all these different types of businesses, but I think people have to give credit that nobody else would be here where we are today with where we're going to go if it wasn't for what he did.
Right, man. As an industry expert, Carol, I was so curious, without directly saying it, what your opinion on him was.
Yeah,
and that's really cool to hear.
And that's
really cool to hear.
Yeah, I mean, news. Can you believe everything? I don't know what it is like a person. I really would like to meet him in person to see, but yeah. You cannot deny, and I think he deserves the credit. I mean, it's hard. We all know that as entrepreneurs.
We should try and get him on our little podcast.
Yeah, for sure.
So
if we can have him, if we do get him on, Carol, I think you have to come too.
Yes,
I think I would love to, but I still want to meet Richard Branson.
All right,
let's not.
I go on Virgin Voyage just thinking like maybe I'll see him. I know when his birthday is. I know he goes on those things. Like I swear I am.
I guess we'd settle for Richard Branson.
So just so you know,
pretty cool guy.
Whenever I hear stuff like that, this is weird. It's weird. I know it's weird. Don't have to tell me it's weird. You don't have to look. That's weird. I get
scared,
it.
Matt.
I'm saying
say it.
no. But when I hear people say stuff like that, it puts into me like this internal challenge. I want to find them. I want to find them, and I want to make this happen. So I had a semi-ongoing bet with my brother-in-law. We were all drinking beer at this little German place in Cocoa Village one day, and it got brought up like how many people I know and stuff like that, and then somehow Harry and Meghan got brought up, and then I got challenged like, I bet you can't get Harry and Meghan on a call, and I looked at him, I said, what'd you say to me?
No.
Yes, I will get Harry and Meghan on a call. Is that a challenge? And because here's the thing, I actually know people that know them.
Because Invictus games and stuff, or no?
I'm not giving my connections.
So, okay, whatever.
But I'm just saying. But I know people that know them, right? There's a very short degree of separation.
Kevin Bacon thing.
And then so I'm like, I'll take it. So I bet him $1,000. Right there. My wife was like, are you kidding? She's like, $1,000 is gone. And I'm like, oh, so you don't believe in me either. I took it like this personal thing. And so I go and I at first, the first few weeks, I was hitting my contacts and I was doing some things and it wasn't coming. I'm like, I'm at $1,000 because he gave me 90 days to do it.
Oh, geez.
And
boundaries. That's good.
Yeah.
Smart.
And then I never.
You couldn't do it.
I couldn't do it. And then
did you pay the $1,000?
I did.
He's going to be so excited to have this on record, by the way. Scott's our operations guy here.
Yeah, Scott took the $1,000 and he bought his kids a bunch of stuff with it, and so it was fun.
Nice.
And actually Scott's kids are my nieces and nephews.
Oh, that's good. Okay,
you know what? So it's fine.
That was a
out.
safe bet. That was kind of like
I didn't know he was going to do that.
Everybody wins.
But it was anyway. It was
so
fine. But I'm not going to. Let's not bet any money.
No betting.
But I am going to try and make sure this meeting with you and Richard happens.
Yes, people need to know. Or he needs to know.
Because I always have to insert myself and be the hero.
I would like you to be the hero. I'm telling you.
But Matt really does pull out. He's got like a crazy. There's like he started the first location you had for the business you bought for $1, right? Or you bought the lease.
No, I didn't buy it for $1. So similar story. I didn't have any when I started my company. I had no money.
Yeah.
I was leaving a company, and I had an idea. I had no money, a little bit of money in savings, and then I went to the city of Palm Bay. A guy that was there at the time, James Marshall. Cheers, James. He's in D.C. now, but I said, hey, man, I want to gather investors to look at companies and fund companies. And the goal would be Palm Bay's 10% commercial and 90% residential. Let's work on that. Do you have any locations here that you guys own that you're not using? And he liked what I was trying to do, and lo and behold, I got 8 acres on the water and 1,000 square foot building for $1.
Unbelievable.
That's where I started Legacy Angel Network.
That's awesome.
And then I took what was left of my savings, and I went and myself and my wife, we rehabbed the inside, and we painted floors, and
awesome.
and God bless her, she's been on such a roller coaster.
She invested in you as well?
She did. She did. She still does every day.
Yeah.
But that's where we started. We started there, and that was back in 2017. That's when we got going.
So it is funny that we had not met. Well, you've been here all your life, though. Yes or no?
Mostly, like about 35 years.
And so you connected with a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're significantly younger than me. So was it 2017?
Not significantly.
A bit. But was it 2017 2016 when you were starting to get more engaged in the community?
So So I was a pastor at Calvary Chapel, Melbourne.
Oh, okay.
For 12 years. So I had a pretty big platform in the community. Or I don't know if it's still, I don't know if it is. I left in 2015, but we had like 15,000 people going there and stuff like that. So I had a big platform. And so people in the community knew me. When I left in June of 15, I went from being a full-time, vocational ministry to owning my own little business because I didn't want to be around people for a little while.
Yep.
And then that lasted for about 6 months, and then I was like, all right, people can come back. Yeah. And I ended up working at a product development company. He called me out of nowhere, or his wife did, and they knew me from my days at Calvary, and they said, yeah, we need someone to herald what we do in the community. We keep thinking about you.
Yeah.
And then that's where the journey really started, because the Wild Manta, Tim Reynolds, it was his company, and he had this company, Cineticom, and they had created like over 200 products for DoD. He's a commercialization genius. So if you ever want to commercialize,
I feel like I was on a panel with Tim Reynolds. I may be making this up, but I think we were judging something, and I don't know, it was JA, it was the Founders Forum.
Founders Forum. It was Tim Reynolds.
I swear.
A little mustache.
I think so. I think I have this visual of being on the stage, and I can sort of even remember the products that one of them was, some guy was like a filmmaker or something. If that's Tim, that was probably 2015.
Tim feels like it feels like Tim, the way Tim talks about you is that he's met you.
I think so.
So that's who I worked for.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to just create products, he wanted to build companies. So the thing that frustrated him about creating all these products for DoD and commercial was that some of them were really great, and they didn't move because people didn't know how to run a business. And so he wanted to take his passion for growing a business and his passion for creating new tech and put them together. And so that was his little dream. And then I worked with him for 13 months. And in the meantime, I saw like this little gap in the community, and we're still. I met with him today. We're still friends today, and we help each other. But yeah, that's how I got rolling.
So now all of a sudden I'm the one asking questions.
Yeah, this is great.
You can take a break.
You go for it. Beautiful production.
So there are different organizations. You always try to create these incubators or these different, and it's tough. It's kind of almost like the STEM thing. They're like, oh, we're going to focus on STEM, and 20 years later it's the same. We don't have enough women in STEM, and blah, blah, blah. But it does feel like there's some of these types of incubators, but organizations that work and some that don't. So a couple questions. What is different about yours? I already have a perception of what I think is different. And then one is a positive thing, because I know you know these guys. How do you differentiate yourself, or how do you work with Groundswell?
Right. Those are two great questions, actually.
They are.
Yeah. So first, kudos to Groundswell. They've created a great environment for companies to come and see whether or not that they have a good idea. and see whether or not they're going to survive and get out there and get funded and get whatever they need. And they provide mentoring, and they've raised, they're connected with a lot of funds. And through those funds, they've been able to connect companies to them. And I think they've raised like $150 million or something. And it's great.
That's awesome.
Jaron's done a great job. Jenna, who started it with Bud, both wonderful people. Both have done a tremendous job. A lot of wonderful things for our community. Again, just I will always sing their praises. I'm glad to know them. We are a community first investment group, and that would be one of the first differences between Legacy Angel Network and maybe a Groundswell. We're not an incubator. So
investor community.
Yeah,
really.
We are an investor community.
I see.
So it's essentially I'm gathering the people that could potentially invest in what is viable coming out of there. But we have our own vetting processes. So if a company from Groundswell wanted an investment, they would go onto our website, they'd fill out an application. If we wanted to know more or go further, we'd open up a data room and say, in order for you to get in front of our group, you have to pass all this criteria. A, B, C, D, E, and F, and G, and just going through. I would want to fill it out, believe me. Like I would. And if you saw our stuff, you would call someone over and say, fill this out. Like it's irritating how much stuff you got to fill out. But that data room is important because what we're telling our investors is that we care about your money, we care about where it goes, who it's going to, and we do deep into the swimming pool vetting on each company, and we vet the people. Like we because of the nature of how we work with a company and going down the road with a company, we don't just invest and hope, we invest and stay and support. So we've created essentially kind of a 360-degree support system that goes around that company. So if company X comes and says, hey, we're going to do this raise, we'll look at where are the holes, what do they need? Can we help fill that? And we look at our resources, and then we plug and we help and we push and we do all those things. So we want to be first great for our community. Second, it's got to be great for our investors. Third, I respect founders because I know what it takes to count the cost and to take a jump and let the wings grow on the way down. Exactly. I understand that. That. I'm still doing that. You're still doing that.
Always.
It's a daily thing. It's a 1 foot in front of the other thing. So we typically, if we do any incubating, it's going to be with the companies that our investors invest in. And we do have different services too that we can offer the community. We don't just shun everybody. That's not what we do. But we are gathering a community of people who want to invest in viable companies and in viable people that are going to benefit Brevard County.
That's awesome.
And that's really, to me, it's community first is everything, and it's in our name, legacy. We want to create legacy here.
So how about diversity? So women, sorry, more questions, right? So thank you for coming to my podcast.
It's good.
So what I'd like to ask you next.
But essentially, I think what we're doing, Matt, is building a platform that makes it easier for investors to invest in things that are well vetted, well developed.
Right.
And on the investor side, obviously the startup side, super important as well.
And the resource side is important because I remember when I first started, there weren't resources there. I mean, I could go government services, I could go on the SBA website, but none of it. You had to go walk around and ask some guy you're trying to get business from. But oh, by the way, hey, could you tell me how to?
Literally,
do this
one of my partners owns a company called DibSec.
Okay.
He shows companies how to get into the government contracting space, shows them everything that they need to do.
I actually know them because I think we did some
Mike?
software for them way back.
Oh,
cool. It's a whole other company thing, but I don't know if it works. Exactly.
So we pull in local companies to do the consulting.
Yeah.
We don't just bring it all in-house here. Like we use local companies. So when an investor, when Carol invests in one of our portfolio companies, we're looking for, all right, what companies do we have here that are in our our atmosphere that we trust,
Yep.
that we know can take that company from here to here in that need. I don't want them to become an expert at something that they're not gifted to be an expert in.
Yeah.
I want to bring in the expert. I want
Yeah,
them to
which
know, have knowledge. I don't want them to become something that they're not. So we're going to start instituting even personality tests.
Oh,
with-
that's interesting.
with
Ooh, I
all
wouldn't
of-
want someone doing that on me. They'd
well,
be like, all right.
here's the thing. If you're asking for money, right?
Yeah.
And this idea didn't come from me because this idea came from one of our members. He's doing it in his own company. He's got a very large company, and in the hiring process, he's trying to figure out what are the strengths and the weaknesses. How are they going to perform, and what are they not good at? That's okay. That's reasonable. When I'm looking at a founder, I want to know, what are you great at? What are you not great at? And it's okay to not be great at everything. I prefer you not think you're great at everything.
Actually, that's exactly
because then
right.
I can't stand you if you do.
Yeah.
So let's look for your deficiencies and look for your strengths. What are your deficiencies? Do you have an answer for that deficiency? Yeah. And if you don't, let's find you one. And so we just try and take it because I want these companies to succeed.
Yeah.
I don't want a 20% success rate. I want an 80% success rate minimum. And in order to do that, you have to get in the weeds. It's longer. It's more tedious. It keeps you up a lot nights, and my sleep schedule sucks.
Oh, mine too, man.
Yeah.
If you wake up, text me. I'll probably be up.
Nice. Cool.
My husband sleeps like a baby, though. It makes me mad. I'm like,
All right. If I text you, just let your husband know, it's cool.
oh, yeah, exactly.
I'll let my wife know
this
it's
is not
cool.
awkward texting.
This
Yeah,
is not
no,
awkward.
it's just, exactly. That's a good point.
Yeah, we'll share with our spouses.
Yeah, that's right. So, how many women-owned businesses have you guys funded? Do you want to fund? Sorry, I'm just throwing that right there.
No, so we want to fund as many women-owned businesses as we can, not because they're just not for the sake of being woke, but because here's
I like that.
Here's the thing. I have a wife, and some of the best advice and insight I've ever had in my life comes from her. Mm-hmm. She sees the world, the room, me, in a truer light than anyone else I know. And when I observe women-owned companies and women CEOs versus male CEOs, I'm not trying to diss male CEOs, whatever. The efficiency difference is staggering.
Yep.
Staggering. One company, we haven't put a lot of funding into her company. We've put a lot of love into her, but Swift Paws locally, Megan.
Yeah.
I think Legacy, one of our members gave her, $25,000 3 years ago. We haven't given her a lot of capital. But we've tried to help her with her connections and stuff like that. But she is the epitome of the kind of person you want to invest in. The girl is next level. In fact, she was pitching to our group, and really just not even a pitch. It was just talking about her company, her recent success, and what she's done. And one of my partners came up to me and said, "Hey, can we put her with company ABC 123 LLC?" I won't say the name of it. Because why? Because you can stick that girl in any company, and she will succeed.
Yeah. You know what? It's sad because I've said the very qualities that women often apologize for are the ones that make them so successful.
Yep.
And it's too bad because we feel like that's a negative. Right. And whether it's empathy or whether it's our drive, whether it's just our, whatever it might be, we shouldn't be apologizing for that. And I think you're right on that there is that advantage. And I like that you said not for the woke reasons, not for the check in the block, but because I think that you can be successful. Women-owned businesses are inherently, they're already 60% to that success line.
Yep.
What is the challenge though? The challenge is you've got families. I have a child with disability with a pretty severe genetic disorder. He's doing amazing. He's an incredible kid. But there's all that stuff. That's a whole nother story.
You can get into that as much as
you
want.
Well, it's one of those. I could tell the story actually because when you kind of asked earlier about paraphrase, sort of your life experiences and all this stuff, how it, moves you into, how does that impact how you are as an entrepreneur or a business
Absolutely.
owner? Well, there's no question that the situation with my son, Danny, really changed me and shaped me. I mean, so I'll try to do this quickly and try to do it with a nice storytelling flow. But so Danny, my first child it was 2000, and I had already kind of started going off working for myself. My husband was still in the military, and first kid, pregnant, didn't feel right. Something wasn't right. It's like, I don't know, he's not moving, whatever. And they're like, oh, no, first pregnancy, you're a warrior. What's your problem? Whatever. So gave birth to him, and right away, military hospital, because John was still in the military. I'm in the Navy Portsmouth Hospital in Virginia Beach, or Portsmouth, Virginia, and something wasn't right. So right away, he comes out, and it's like he's making noise, and it's like they said it was a pneumothorax, a little punctured lung, and they're trying to figure out what's going on, and is he premature? I'm like, no, I don't think so. I kind of take him away, and I go off to my room there, and they took him to the NICU, and while he was there, he started to lose all of his reflexes. So he started off as like they do the APGARs 9-6, he's going to be fine, whatever. He was a decent sized kid. It wasn't. That's why they said, is he premature? And it was kind of like, I don't think so. So they take him off, and he starts to lose his reflexes. So pretty soon he's not sucking, he's not moving. They've got him on all kinds of whatever, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. So they do a first level genetics panel, and they're like, we can't tell what's going on. He's got a little heart murmur. He's got all this other stuff. We don't know. So they said, we're going to do a CAT scan. And we lived about an hour away. So we were in Virginia Beach, and this was Portsmouth. This was about an hour away from the hospital. And I'd finally gone home after like 4 days, and they did this CAT scan. And so I called back to the hospital, and I said, hey, do you have the results of the CAT scan? And the doctor said, yeah. And I said, okay, can you tell me what they are? And he said, we need you to come in now, and we'll tell you. And I'm like, no, you need to tell me now over the phone. He's like, no, you need to come in now. And I'm like, no. Because I'm like, I'm not going to drive an hour going, oh my gosh, what's wrong? He said, okay, fine. He said, well, the results of the CAT scan show that a third of his brain is missing, and where he should have ridges, it's smooth. So he's severely brain damaged. So we're like, okay. So we go in. John and I sit down, they show us the picture of the brain damage, and here's the situation. So now we got to figure out, what are we going to do? We put a do not resuscitate him on him because we have friends who had a child severely disabled, and we saw kind of what it did to them. And we are a family of faith, and so said a lot of prayers and kind of like what do we what's the path forward? So put the do not resuscitate on him, and during all of this, I kept saying, like, I can see him looking at me. I can see it in his eyes, and they're like, "No, poor Carol." You're like, no, you're just thinking that, and I'm like, "No, I can see him. He's looking at me. He's following me." Like, no. So we end up. It's 2 weeks later. He's got the do not resuscitate. He was still in the NICU, and we actually found out about a home for disabled infants that was in the area in Norfolk, Virginia, and they had one bed available. So we're like, okay, that's great, and they could oversee him, take care of him, all of that. And so we were preparing to check him into that home for disabled infants. And it's a big deal. When you have a kid with a disability that severe, you've got to go through Social Security and everything. And so we did all of that. And right before we left the hospital, I said, can I get an MRI for Danny? And the doctors are like, why? It's going to show the same thing. Why do you want an MRI? And I said, well, in my mind, I was like, well, number one, I want to know what I did wrong, because as a mom, I felt responsible. Number two, I want to know how I can fix this. And they said, well, fine, we'll do an MRI. So we take him home. They do the MRI. We take him home. It's a holiday weekend at that point when we had taken him home. We had done the MRI just a few days earlier. Holiday weekend. I called back right before the holiday weekend, I guess it was, and I said, hey, do you have the results of the MRI? And the doctor said, yes, they show the same thing as the CAT scan, still brain damage. I'm like, okay. So we check him into this home for disabled infants, which was horrible, as you can imagine. You check him in, and I just was like, is someone going to hold him? Is someone going to, it was awful. And so anyway, we check him in there. We come back the next day. It's like a Tuesday morning. I remember Monday was when we checked him in. Tuesday morning, we're sitting there with the new doctors, because it's the Children's Hospital of the King's Daughters out of Norfolk, Virginia. Sit with that doctor, and as we're talking about his care and what's going to happen, a nurse walks in, and she puts a piece of paper in front of the doctor. He looks at it. He looks up at us, and he says, we need to take this do not resuscitate off this child right now. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, there's nothing wrong with his brain. I said, what do you mean there's nothing wrong with his brain? He said, no, these are the results of his MRI. It says there's nothing wrong with his brain. And we kind of looked at each other and like, okay, we took the do not resuscitate off. And I remember walking out to the parking lot and John and I were just like, what just happened? Like, what is going on? And so kind of fast forward, we end up, looking at, going back, we went back to Portsmouth Naval Hospital to try to figure out what was going on. And it turns out that, first of all, the way that they actually got that paperwork was that a nurse from Navy Portsmouth Hospital had anonymously faxed the results of the MRI. We went back to Portsmouth and said, hey, we got these results that say there's nothing wrong with his brain. What's going on? They kept trying to argue like, well, we saw this, we think there's this. Turns out that they had made a mistake with the CAT scan. They had caught shadowing and there was really nothing wrong with his brain. And so again, I don't know if I'm telling the story, smoothly and the best way.
Great.
But the point was, so the nurse anonymously faxing that over, nothing wrong with his brain. He's now checked into this home for disabled infants, right? And we're like, okay, what do we do now? Because there's something wrong, right? We knew there was something wrong, but they're saying, it's not brain damage. And oh, by the way, I remember telling somebody, I'm like, I was praying so hard, like, God, can you fix it? I couldn't figure out how God could fix brain damage without everyone knowing there was a real miracle. Like, well, maybe figure out a way. I don't know, whatever it was. But I also went, okay, let's figure out now. It's not brain damage. What's wrong now? So we kept him in the home for disabled infants. And I swear, every day I would show up at the door when it opened at 8 a.m. and I would come in and I would sit there until the door closed at 5 o'clock and asking about questions, seeing what was going on. And then when I'd come home, I would get on the internet because there was internet back then, and I would Google anything I could to figure out what was really wrong, what type of disorder, disability. And then I would bring it in and I'd have a list. I said, can you check for DeGeorge's syndrome? Can you check for, I knew, the bad part was I knew of all the genetic syndromes, and it's a miracle that I had my daughter, get back on the horse kind of a thing, because I realized how many there were out there. And then finally, after 6 weeks, he came home, and then a doctor called us and he said, Danny has Prader-Willi syndrome. And one of the doctors had actually told us we should do a different type of genetic test because there was a newer one to determine a different type of this syndrome. And that's what we did. And at that point, I kind of went, brain damage, Prader-Willi syndrome. You know what? I can fix Prader-Willi syndrome. Yeah. And that was, all of that was the, fool me once kind of a thing. I'll never take no for an answer, but I'll never take just one opinion again. I will do my own research. I will fight for whatever. And that was, all of that kind of, moved me to change my mindset. And the same thing. And it also was what drove the fight for benefits, because we were very blessed. The military, believe it or not, had great benefits. Because now that I knew it was Prader-Willi syndrome, I was going to try anything. I was going to do everything I could. I did research on brain damage. I did research on Down syndrome, all these different disorders. And I kind of went, okay, what do I think can help? So his disability is Prader-Willi syndrome. And these kids are supposed to be short, small hands, small feet. It's a hypothalamus malfunctions. They never feel full. They can actually eat themselves to death. And they're supposed to be mild to severely mentally challenged. And Danny ended up 6'4". He's in college at University of North Florida. He has challenges. He'll say that himself. He'll admit it. He'll throw the disability card out every once in a while. I tell him to do that when it's appropriate. Okay, if you need a good parking spot, Danny, it's okay to say it.
That's right.
But he has just defied the odds.
That's awesome.
And he continues to defy the odds. And so, long story to talk about.
Love those freaking
my son,
like
but it really is, when you have something like that happen, it just changes your mindset on everything. So sorry, I don't know why I even went down that.
No, that's.
Hopefully, I just told the story. Any questions? I leave anything out?
I'm so glad
what was it?
What a testament to your resilience. Just to start questioning those things and hold on to hope.
Yeah.
My wife had an emergency C-section in the hospital with our first, and it felt like my world was collapsing.
Yeah.
Just something that little, I can't imagine.
Yeah.
I can't imagine
getting
that feedback.
It is. Yeah. It was. And, I tell the story now and I don't get emotional. I can, but I don't get emotional because I know where the outcome is, right? And and we still have challenges.
Yeah.
But I'm like, talk about blessed. And people who know Danny are like, oh my gosh, this kid's amazing. He's he's a sweet, understanding kid. He's very smart. He started reading when he's 3.5, and he's supposed to
Wow.
be, challenged. But again, that
Wow.
changes your whole perspective. So I know what it was. We were talking about parents, right? We're talking about women-owned business owners. That's what it was. So there you go. It was because as a mom, that was the other thing. There was no way because I was growing my company, right? I started in 1999. All this happened. And I've got to focus on the business, but I'm going to stay involved. I was Danny to every doctor's appointment. And then I had Jillian 16 months later.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I was worried about, I did research on the successes of kids with disabilities when they have typical functioning kids. So I thought that she could help with that. And so I had her. And so you think about all the stuff going on. But the moral of that story, though, was for women business owners, you can do it all. It's not easy.
Right.
But you can. You just got to figure out how it works. So
Right.
women owners, business owners may get intimidated. Like, can I really do this? I was very blessed to have a whole village. Had a husband, the military, medicine, all of that. But there are people out there that can help. And so there's my little.
That's cool.
Carol, I mean, from my perspective, I think that's the value of women-led businesses and female entrepreneurs is like, if we lacked your perspective of business ownership, motherhood, that like everything that diverse part of the business ecosystem, if that was lacking here in Brevard or in the aerospace industry or on this podcast, we'd be missing so much.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
powerful, and we appreciate you sharing.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you. That was kind of a downer. Sorry about that. Oh,
No,
it should be a
it's
downer
amazing.
because
No.
Danny's
It's-
amazing. I'm
no,
telling you, the
It's
kid
not a
is
downer. It's not
awesome.
a downer. No,
Yeah.
no. I mean, but it's those stories. Like I can look back on my life, and I actually have recently done this where I get, you kind of just take the breadth of your life, and you can pinpoint these moments, these pivotal pieces where it definitely steered you as a human being into the way that, whether it's your drive or the way that you think or the way that you see the world or the way that you treat others, or you can just look at these pivotal moments and they're defining. And, one of the reasons why we started doing this podcast is because we wanted to strip away the idea that founders and people that venture out and go for it in their life are any different than, at the end of the day, we're not all that different. We put one foot in front of the other. We have struggles. We go through things. We need others. We need people. We need, we need resources. We need good ideas. We need, and it's really understanding and learning all the stories and the struggles that kind of get us to the place that we are today. It gives permission, I think, for people to venture when
And to be honest about that, man.
Yeah,
Like, to
being
share their
honest about our
experience. Yeah.
challenges breeds the next generations, or even the same generation of entrepreneurs. It says it's okay, and if I can do it, anyone can.
And it also breeds. You don't have to hide. You don't have to be okay. You don't have to have it all together all the time. You don't have to have all of the answers.
Yeah.
You don't. You don't. Just go.
You said, and if it looks like you do, then there might be an issue, right? If you're constantly trying to put out that presence that you got it all covered, or you say you think you have all the answers, then that's kind of a red flag a little bit.
Massively. I mean, not only if you're getting hired at a job, it's a red flag. If you are asking investors to give you money and you have an answer for everything, it's a red flag.
That might be a red flag.
It's a red flag.
Yep.
So it's not just okay to not know. Own that.
Own it, yeah, absolutely. Be
Because
proud of
that's when people can trust you.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Carol, we really appreciate your time. It's a fabulous interview.
I figured this
Yeah.
was the longest podcast. You're like, what time?
I have no
Oh,
idea
it's
what
like
time.
7 o'clock at night.
Definitely the best
No,
one
but
yet.
this
No,
was,
appreciate
well,
it.
I've enjoyed this. I think you should have me in with all your podcasts. I think I should be like, okay, and so today we have,
We need
I'm
it.
just
Look,
kidding.
Carol's corner.
We can make this happen.
I
We
think
can
it's
figure this out.
awesome.
We can figure this out. Yeah.
No, this is so much fun. I need these types of things. That goes back to, as an entrepreneur, to have that break, to be able to share your story.
Yeah.
It's somewhat entertaining for myself, but it's also, to be able to just take a breath and relax and share and,
I think there's a lot of
interact.
people that are going to listen to this and get a lot of value out of it, Carol. And on that note, like, do you have any parting advice for upcoming entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs? I mean,
Yeah.
what do you have to say to the people listening?
Well, I mean, it does kind of go back to that. Sometimes you just have to jump and build your wings on the way down. And that comes out of, I've had people say, well, at what point do you do it? How do you do it? When do you leave that job? How do you do whatever? I did it safely. I was part-time and had a husband with a job and, I kind of eased my way in. There is no answer.
Right.
I think you also have to think about, do it and then you can always go back to what you did before. I mean, there's always a path.
Yep.
No matter what it is. There are people who have gone through so much more difficulties than any of us can imagine, and they always find that path back.
Yep.
So sometimes you just have to jump.
Like we like to say, man, it's nothing ventured, right?
Nothing
Yeah.
changed.
Yep.
Nothing
it.
mentioned, nothing changed. That's right.
Perfect.
That's right.
Awesome. Thank you. This was so much fun.
Well, cheers to you.
Cheers.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, cheers, Carol Craig, everybody.